Universal happiness researchers discovered human surprise parties cure existential dread. Part 1. Doctor stared at the data screen and felt nothing. The numbers showed another week of failure across 17 star systems. 3 more had chosen voluntary death. The shareholder collective on Titan had voted to enter permanent stasis. Even her own people, reported increasing cases of what they called the hollow. She touched her chest where her twin hearts beat slowly. When had she last felt true joy, true purpose? She couldn't remember. The feeling had simply drained away over the years, replaced by this empty sensation that no amount of success or pleasure could fill. The hollow had no biological cause. Every species experienced it differently, but the symptoms were universal. A creeping sense that nothing mattered, that existence itself was pointless, that even immortality was just an endless stretch of meaningless time. It had started 20 years ago among the philosophers and spread like a virus of thought. Now it touched nearly every sentient being in the known galaxy. Led the Universal Happiness Initiative, the consortium's best attempt to solve the crisis. Her team had tried everything. They modified brain chemistry. They created virtual paradises tailored to each species. They designed purpose assignment algorithms. They taught gratitude protocols. They eliminated suffering wherever they found it. Nothing worked. The hollow only grew stronger. Her colleague, Doctor of the Pod Minds, floated in his tank beside her desk. "We have the proposal ready," he said, his translated voice carrying a sadness that even his species' famous optimism couldn't hide. "Earth. It's our last option." Pulled up the file. Earth. In a backwater system. Excessive gravity, extreme weather, tectonic instability. Thousands of species that could kill you. The dominant species, humans, lived maybe 100 years if they were lucky. They had barely mastered their own solar system. They still experienced disease, poverty, war, and every form of suffering the advanced species had eliminated ago. But they didn't have the hollow. Somehow, impossibly, humans were happy. Not all of them, not all the time, but as a species they maintained a baseline of hope and purpose that baffled every who studied them. They knew they would die, yet they made long-term plans. They suffered terrible losses, yet they recovered. They created meaning from nothing but their own determination to do so. How, asked the screen, how do they do it? 3 weeks later, she stood on Earth for the first time. The gravity pressed down on her like a physical weight. The air tasted strange. The sun was too bright and too warm. Everything about the planet screamed danger. Their human liaison met them at the landing site. His name was, and he smiled at them with his mouth open, showing teeth. Threat response activated immediately. Showing teeth meant aggression in most species, but she had read the briefing. For humans, it meant friendliness. "Welcome to Earth," said. "I'm so excited to help with your research. We've set up a facility in San Francisco. It's got ocean views and everything." Watched him carefully. Looked young by human standards, maybe 30 years old. That meant he had already lived a third of his natural, yet he showed no signs of existential despair. His energy levels were high. His body language expressed genuine enthusiasm. "You understand what we're studying?" asked. "Yeah, you want to know why we're not all depressed and giving up on life like a lot of species out there," shrugged. "Honestly, I don't really get why that's happening to everyone else. Life is pretty great, you know." Doctor made a bubbling sound in his translation unit. "Your species experiences significant suffering, war, disease, natural disasters, personal loss, death. You are aware of your own mortality from a young age. How is life pretty great under those conditions?" Thought about it as he led them to the transport vehicle. "I mean, yeah, bad stuff happens, but good stuff happens too, and you never know what's coming next. That's kind of the fun of it, right? Plus, you've got friends and family and pizza and sunsets and really good songs and all sorts of things that make it worth it." Filed this response away. The human seemed to find meaning in simple pleasures and uncertainty, Uncertainty. That was interesting. The consortium had spent centuries eliminating uncertainty from life. Perfect prediction, perfect control, perfect safety. Perfect emptiness. The research facility was comfortable, adapted for multiple species. Got them settled and showed them the observation equipment. "So what's the plan?" he asked. "We will observe human behavior in natural settings," explained. "We will interview subjects. We will scan brain activity. We will analyze your cultural practices. Somewhere in your species' psychology is the answer to the hollow. We must find it." For 2 days they observed and took notes. Humans rushed around their cities with apparent purpose. They gathered in groups and made their strange mouth noise that meant happiness, called laughter. They touched each other constantly, a behavior that most species found uncomfortable. They ate together, worked together, played games together. They also argued. They cried. They showed anger and fear and frustration. Yet these negative emotions seemed to flow through them and dissipate rather than building into the hollow. On the third day, something strange happened. Didn't arrive at the facility for their morning session. Checked his location beacon. It showed him at his residence, not moving. "Potential medical emergency," doctor suggested. "We should investigate." They arrived at its dwelling with the rest of the team. Had brought 5 researchers representing different species and specialties. They approached the door cautiously. What if something had happened to their liaison? What if the hollow had somehow jumped to humans? The door was unlocked. They entered slowly. The room was dark. Eyes adjusted to the low light. She could see shapes, human figures standing motionless around the room. Her threat assessment organs activated fully. This was wrong. This was dangerous. Then someone touched a control panel. The lights blazed on. 30 humans leaped from their hiding places, their mouths open wide, making loud, coordinated vocalizations. "Surprise!" they screamed. Small pieces of colored paper exploded into the air from handheld devices. Bright balloons hung from the ceiling. A large banner read, "Happy Birthday Marcus." His entire body locked up in shock. Attack response. Ambush. Coordinated assault by hostile forces. But wasn't running. He wasn't defending himself. He stood in the center of the room with water leaking from his eyes and that tooth-showing smile on his face. He was making the laughter noise while also appearing to cry. "You guys," he said to the humans, "I can't believe you did this. I thought I was having a heart attack." The humans swarmed him. They wrapped their arms around him in the behavior called hugging. They handed him objects wrapped in colorful paper. They brought out a large sweet food item called cake, which they then deliberately set on fire. His team stood frozen in the doorway, trying to process what they were witnessing. One of the humans noticed them. "Oh, you must be alien friends. Come in. We're celebrating his birthday." What, managed to say, is happening? Extracted himself from the crowd. "It's a surprise party. My friends tricked me into thinking we had a normal get-together, but really they were planning this whole thing. It's my birthday, the anniversary of the day I was born, and humans celebrate that." "They ambushed you," said slowly. "They coordinated a deceptive attack pattern. They used fire. They are celebrating the fact that you are 1 year closer to death." Laughed again. "Well, when you put it that way, it sounds weird. But yeah, basically, it's fun. The surprise part is the best. I had no idea this was coming." Looked at her team. Doctor's tank was bubbling with confusion. The L researcher had gone into a defensive posture, but they were all thinking the same thing. The humans had weaponized joy. They had turned uncertainty, deception, and mortality itself into a celebration. And somehow, impossibly, it worked. Was radiating more genuine happiness than had seen in any being in years. She pulled out her scanner and began taking readings. Whatever was happening here, whatever made humans immune to the hollow, it was connected to this bizarre ritual. She was certain of it. "Doctor," called out, Come have some cake, you can study us while we party. That's what you're here for, right? She stepped into the room full of loud, happy humans celebrating death and deception with fire and sugar. And for the first time in 5 years, she felt something other than the hollow. She felt curiosity. Part 2. Didn't sleep that night. She sat in the research facility reviewing the brain scans from Surprise Party over and over. The pattern shouldn't be possible. When humans experienced the surprise, their neural activity spiked across every region associated with threat response. Fear, shock, confusion. But within microseconds, different regions activated. Recognition, relief, joy, connection. The threat response didn't shut down completely, but instead transformed into something else entirely. The fear became excitement. The shock became delight. Most species would experience this kind of ambush as traumatic. Their brains would treat it as a violation of trust, a dangerous deception. But human brains seemed wired to reinterpret surprise attacks as gifts, as long as the context was positive. Doctor floated into the lab early in the morning. You're still analyzing the party. Look at this. Pulled up a comparison chart. This is a L brain during a trust violation. This is a human brain during the surprise party. The initial responses are nearly identical, but then humans have this additional processing layer that reframes the entire experience. They choose to interpret coordinated deception as an act of love. That's irrational, said. Is it? Zoomed in on another section. Look at the bonding hormone levels, the connection metrics. Surprise parties create stronger social bonds than any positive interaction we've measured. The humans who planned the party spent time, resources, and effort on an elaborate deception. And that effort itself communicates value. It says, you are important enough to me that I will work hard to create joy for you. She pulled up another file. I've been researching human cultural practices all night. Surprise parties are everywhere. But it goes deeper. Humans surprise each other constantly. Marriage proposals hidden in elaborate scenarios. Pregnancy announcements disguised as normal dinners. Returning soldiers hiding in closets to surprise their children. They have an entire culture built around positive uncertainty. Bubbled thoughtfully. The consortium has spent eliminating uncertainty, perfect prediction, perfect control. We thought that was what happiness required. We were wrong. Felt something stirring in her chest. Was it excitement? When had she last felt excited about a discovery? Humans live on a chaotic where they can't predict or control much of anything. So they evolved to not just tolerate uncertainty but to create it deliberately. They practice being surprised. They rehearse the joy of not knowing what comes next. Arrived at the facility an hour later looking tired but happy. Sorry I missed work yesterday. That party went pretty late. We need to understand this better, said immediately. Surprise parties, how common are they? Who plans them? What are the rules? Blinked. The rules? I mean, there aren't really formal rules. You just plan something nice for someone without them knowing. The whole point is that they don't see it coming. But they trust you not to actually harm them. Well, yeah, it's still a party. It's still celebrating them. The surprise is just the delivery method. Leaned forward. Do you understand what you're describing? You are telling me that humans regularly practice social deception, create artificial uncertainty, and stage ambush scenarios with the explicit purpose of generating positive emotions. I mean, when you say it like that, it sounds calculated, but it's really not. It's just something nice you do for people you care about. Paused. Is this helpful for your research, understanding surprise parties? It might be everything, said quietly. Over the next 3 weeks, the team immersed themselves in human celebration culture. They attended birthday parties, baby showers, retirement celebrations. They watched proposals on beaches and anniversary surprises at restaurants. They documented humans bursting into tears at airports when loved ones appeared unexpectedly. Every event followed the same pattern. Deception led to surprise, which led to overwhelming emotion, which led to deeper connection. The humans were vulnerable with each other in ways that most species would find terrifying. They admitted they didn't know what was coming. They let others control their experiences. They embraced uncertainty as a gift. Began forming her hypothesis. The hollow emerged from perfect certainty. When species eliminated all meaningful uncertainty from their lives, when they achieved complete control and perfect safety, they lost something essential. Purpose required stakes. Meaning required risk. Joy required the possibility of surprise. The advanced species had created utopias where nothing unexpected could happen. And in doing so, they had made life predictable to the point of meaninglessness. Humans, with their short, chaotic lives, couldn't afford that luxury. They knew tragedy could strike at any moment, so they made sure joy could strike at any moment too. They weaponized positive uncertainty to balance the negative uncertainty of their dangerous world. "We need to present this to the consortium," Doctor said after reviewing her notes. "This could be the answer we've been searching for." But first wanted one more data point. She approached after a research session. Would it be possible to experience a surprise party ourselves, for research purposes? His face lit up. "Absolutely, when's your birthday?" "Don't celebrate emergence days. We don't celebrate much of anything anymore, actually. That's part of the problem." "Okay, so we'll just pick a reason. How about celebrating your research progress? You've been here a month now. That seems worth celebrating." "But we would know it's coming. That defeats the purpose of surprise." Grinned, "Trust me, I can still surprise you." 3 days later, and her team arrived at what they believed was a standard research symposium at the Earth Consortium Embassy. They had been told to present their preliminary findings to the diplomatic staff. It seemed routine. They walked into the conference room. The lights were normal. The chairs were arranged properly. Everything appeared standard. Then noticed the decorations. Banners hung from the ceiling. A table was loaded with food. And standing around the room were people she recognized from there, her clutch sibling, podmate, the L Researchers Nest Group. Stepped out from behind the table. "Surprise, we wanted to celebrate your research team." His mind went blank. Then it restarted with a flood of emotions she couldn't process. Shock, confusion, fear. Her clutch sibling was here, on Earth. That required using expensive quantum gates and traveling for weeks. That meant effort. That meant her sibling cared enough to cross the galaxy for her. Her legs felt weak. Water leaked from her optical organs, mimicking the human crying response. She didn't know what was happening to her body. "N," her clutch sibling said, using her childhood name. "I'm so proud of what you're doing. We all are. You're trying to save everyone." The room was full of beings from different worlds, all looking at her with what she now recognized as the human expression of affection and pride. They had coordinated this. They had planned and deceived and surprised her. For her. The hollow, which had been a constant presence in her chest for years, retreated. In its place was something bright and warm and terrifying. She was vulnerable. She was surprised. She didn't know what would happen next. And it felt wonderful. Doctor received his surprise next. His entire pod-mind collective appeared via hologram, singing in harmonic waves. The L researcher was reunited with nest siblings she hadn't seen in cycles. Every team member experienced the same pattern: deception, surprise, overwhelming emotion, connection. Watched her team laugh and cry and hug their loved ones. She watched them be vulnerable and uncertain and joyful. She watched the hollow flee from the room like darkness before light. Approached her with 2 cups of the human beverage called coffee. "So, good surprise." Took the cup with shaking hands. "I understand now. It's not just the surprise, it's what the surprise represents. Someone thought about you. Someone planned for you. Someone decided you were worth the effort of creating joy. And you didn't know it was coming, which means you didn't control it. It was a gift freely given." "Yeah," said simply. That's what caring about people looks like. Looked around the room at species from across the galaxy, all experiencing genuine joy for the first time in years. We have to teach this to everyone. The whole consortium needs to learn how to surprise each other. The whole galaxy needs surprise parties, grinned. That's the most human solution to a crisis I've ever heard. It's more than parties, said. It's embracing uncertainty. It's allowing others to affect us. It's admitting we don't control everything and finding joy in that lack of control. She met his eyes. Humans have been doing this naturally for thousands of years. We need you to teach us how. Looked thoughtful. Teaching surprise kind of defeats the purpose, doesn't it? But I think I get what you mean. Teaching the mindset, the openness to being surprised, the trust that uncertainty can be good. Will you help us? Of course, raised his coffee cup. To surprise parties saving the galaxy. Honestly, I've heard weirder plans. Touched her cup to his in the human gesture of agreement. Around them, the party continued. Her clutch sibling was talking to Doctor's podmate. The L researcher was sharing food with friends, beings from different worlds, connecting through manufactured uncertainty. For the first time in years, felt hope. Not the desperate hope of someone drowning and looking for rescue. Real hope. The hope of someone who didn't know what tomorrow would bring and was excited to find out. The hollow had always felt permanent, like the heat death of the universe itself. But watching her team laugh at a surprise party, realized it had been a choice all along. The choice to demand certainty. The choice to control everything. The choice to eliminate surprise from life. Humans had never made that choice, and now they would teach the galaxy to unmake it. Part 3. The Galactic Consortium Council Chamber was designed to intimidate. It held representatives from 300 species, arranged in concentric circles that rose toward a crystalline dome. Every major civilization had a voice here, and they were all about Tahir's proposal. She stood at the central podium, her research team behind her, beside her as a human representative. The data was loaded. The presentation was ready, but she knew the data wouldn't be enough. She had to make them understand. Honored delegates, she began. 20 years ago, the hollow began spreading through our civilizations. Today, it touches nearly every sentient being in the consortium. We have lost millions to voluntary death. Billions more exist in a state of meaninglessness. Every solution we've tried has failed. The council chamber was silent. They all knew the statistics. They all felt the emptiness. My team was sent to Earth to study humanity, a species immune to the hollow despite living short lives on a dangerous world. What we discovered was unexpected. Pulled up the neural scans from Surprise Party. Humans have a cultural practice called surprise parties. They deliberately deceive each other, create artificial uncertainty, and celebrate mortality itself. And it works. A L delegate made the grinding sound that indicated skepticism. You are proposing that deception is the cure for existential despair. Not deception for harm, countered. Deception for joy, controlled uncertainty, positive surprise. The human brain responds to these experiences with massive releases of bonding hormones and activation of meaning-making centers. More importantly, the practice itself reinforces a worldview where uncertainty is desirable, where not knowing what comes next is exciting rather than terrifying. A shareholder representative's crystalline form flickered. We have spent eliminating uncertainty. Perfect prediction was our greatest achievement. And it created the hollow, said bluntly. Perfect prediction led to perfect meaninglessness. When every moment is known, when every experience is controlled, when nothing can surprise us, we lose the capacity for genuine joy. The chamber erupted in multiple forms of disagreement. Delegates argued in dozens of languages. The philosophical council called her theory dangerous. The pod minds suggested contamination by human irrationality. Stepped forward, may I speak? The council quieted, curious about what the human would say. I'm 32 years old, began. In about 60 or 70 years I'll die, that's it. That's all the time I get. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because I don't know what's going to happen in those 60 years. I don't know who I'll meet. I don't know what I'll create. I don't know what will make me laugh or cry or feel alive. He looked around the chamber. You all have immortality, unlimited time, perfect safety, perfect control, and you're miserable. We have limited time, constant danger, and no control over much of anything. And we're mostly happy. The difference isn't resources or technology. It's how we think about uncertainty. Uncertainty leads to suffering, a delegate argued. Sometimes, agreed. But it also leads to joy, and you can't have one without the other. When you eliminated all uncertainty, you eliminated the possibility of genuine surprise, including good surprises, including joy that you didn't schedule and plan and control. Pulled up more data. We conducted an experiment. We threw a surprise party for my research team. Every member experienced a measurable reduction in hollow symptoms. Some reported complete remission. The effect lasted weeks. When we followed up with interview subjects who had experienced surprise parties, we found sustained improvements in purpose, meaning, and life satisfaction. One party fixes everything. The question came from a skeptical shareholder. One party demonstrates the principle, corrected. The actual fix requires a fundamental shift in how we approach uncertainty. We must learn to embrace not knowing. We must create space for surprise in our lives. We must allow others to affect us in ways we don't control. She played video from the research team's party. The council watched in silence as beings from different worlds experienced shock, tears, laughter, and connection. They watched the hollow retreat in real time. "This is your evidence?" a delegate asked. "Emotional responses to social gatherings." "This is proof that uncertainty, properly contextualized, generates meaning," said firmly. "The hollow exists because we removed all stakes from life. Nothing matters when everything is guaranteed. Purpose requires risk. Joy requires the possibility of surprise. We cannot eliminate the hollow by making life more certain. We can only eliminate it by making life less certain in positive ways." The debate continued for hours. Some delegates were convinced, others remained skeptical. The consortium didn't make quick decisions, but noticed something important. The delegates who were most resistant to her proposal were the ones who showed the strongest signs of the hollow: affect, flat responses, existential exhaustion. They argued against uncertainty because they had forgotten how to tolerate it. Finally, the council called for a trial program. 50 worlds would implement surprise celebration protocols. Cultural experts from each species would work with human advisors to develop appropriate forms of positive uncertainty. The results would be evaluated in one standard year. Agreed to the terms. As she left the council chamber, walked beside her. "Think it'll work?" he asked. "I don't know," said. Then she paused, feeling the words. "I don't know." For centuries, consortium citizens had been trained to never admit uncertainty, to always have answers, to predict and control everything. But "I don't know" felt liberating. It felt honest. It felt like hope. "That's the whole point, isn't it?" she said. "Not knowing, being uncertain about the future, finding that exciting instead of terrifying." Smiled. "You're getting it." The trial program exceeded every expectation. The L developed sudden jubilations, where nest groups surprised each other with gatherings and gifts. The shareholders created unexpected crystallization ceremonies, involving elaborate deceptions and reveals. Despite their initial resistance, embraced unscheduled celebrations of existence. Each species adapted the concept to their own culture and psychology. But the core principle remained the same: positive uncertainty, deliberate surprise, embracing the unknown as a gift. 6 months into the program, hollow-related deaths had dropped by 40% on trial worlds. Reports of renewed purpose increased dramatically. The gray fog that had settled over the consortium was beginning to lift. Traveled to different worlds, teaching the philosophy behind surprise parties. She explained that it wasn't about the parties themselves. It was about cultivating a mindset where uncertainty was welcome, where control wasn't necessary, where life could astonish you, and that was wonderful. She returned to Earth a year after her first visit, met her at the landing site with his characteristic smile. "Welcome back. How's the galaxy-saving business?" "Exhausting," admitted, "but effective. The Hollow is retreating across every world that's embraced positive uncertainty. The consortium is voting to make surprise celebrations an official recommendation for all member species." "So surprise parties save the galaxy," laughed. "That's the most ridiculous and most human thing I've ever heard." They walked to his favorite coffee shop. Earth still felt too heavy, too bright, too chaotic, but was learning to appreciate that chaos. The uncertainty of weather, the unpredictability of human social interactions, the constant small surprises of a world that didn't operate on perfect control. "I have a question," said as they sat down. "Why do you think humans developed this way? Why did your species evolve to embrace uncertainty?" "Thought about it. I think because we didn't have a choice. Life on Earth is unpredictable, always has been. Earthquakes, storms, diseases, all sorts of things we can't control. We could either spend all our time being terrified of what might happen, or we could decide that uncertainty is just part of life. And if bad surprises are inevitable, we might as well create good surprises to balance them out. You weaponized positive uncertainty to counteract negative uncertainty." "We made lemonade out of lemons," said. "That's another human saying. It means making something good out of something bad." "Understood." Humans had turned their greatest weakness, their lack of control over their chaotic world, into their greatest strength. They had made peace with uncertainty. More than that, they had made it beautiful. She thought about her own life before the Hollow. When she was young, before perfect prediction and perfect control, she had felt excited about the future. Uncertain, yes, but in a good way. The uncertainty had meant possibility. It had meant that amazing things could happen. The consortium had taken that away in the name of progress. They had eliminated possibility in the pursuit of perfection, and they had created a perfect emptiness. "Thank you," said quietly, "for teaching us, for sharing this with the galaxy." Shrugged. "Hey, you did the hard part. You're the one who figured out what we were doing and why it mattered. You're the one who convinced everyone to try it. I just threw some parties and explained human weirdness." "Human wisdom," corrected. Over the next year, surprise celebrations spread across the galaxy. Some species took to it immediately. Others needed time to adjust. But slowly, steadily, the Hollow retreated. Suicide rates fell. Purpose scores rose. People reported feeling excited about the future again. Not because the future was guaranteed to be good, but because it was unknown. And the unknown could hold anything. Kept in touch with. They met occasionally, whenever her research brought her to Earth. He told her about his life, about the surprises good and bad that filled his days. He got engaged and attended the proposal, which his partner had staged as an elaborate surprise involving a scavenger hunt and 30 of their closest friends. She watched and his partner celebrate their uncertainty together. They didn't know if their marriage would last. They didn't know what challenges they would face. They didn't know what the future held. And they were joyful because of it, not despite it. At the wedding, found during the reception, I heard the consortium officially ended the Hollow crisis, full remission across 90% of tracked populations. "We didn't end it," said. "We just taught everyone to live with uncertainty again, to embrace it, to celebrate it." "Same thing, really," grinned. "So what's next for the famous doctor? What does the savior of the galaxy do for an encore?" "I don't know," said, and she smiled, feeling the truth of it. She didn't know what her future held. She didn't know what discoveries she would make or what challenges she would face or what would surprise her tomorrow. For the first time in decades, she was excited to find out. Above them, representatives from dozens of species danced together, celebrating a human marriage with enthusiasm that would have been unthinkable 2 years ago. The music was loud. The decorations were excessive. People were laughing and crying and being vulnerable with each other. Somewhere in the crowd, someone was probably planning the next surprise party, the next joyful ambush, the next celebration of uncertainty. The Hollow had taught the galaxy that perfect control led to perfect emptiness. Humans had taught them that embracing chaos led to meaning, that not knowing was a gift, that surprise was sacred. And the galaxy, after nearly destroying itself with certainty, was learning to be surprised again. Raised her glass in the human gesture of celebration, to uncertainty, to surprise, to the strange wisdom of a species that lived on a chaotic and decided that chaos was something to celebrate. To surprise parties saving the galaxy. Touched his glass to hers. "You know what the best part is," he said. "Nobody knows what happens next. Not you, not me, not anyone. And that's exactly how it should be." Looked around at the celebration, at the species from across the stars learning to be uncertain together. The future was unknown. It was unpredictable. It was full of possibilities, both good and bad. It was perfect.